Hello, I am Centimus Prime, and here I will be showing you Boba Fett's transforming Microfighter, a small combo build I've made using the parts from the LEGO sets, from the LEGO Star Wars set 35 through 44, the Boba Fett's Microfighter starship thingy, and the LEGO Star Wars set number 75-369. Both have a heavy Boba Fett theme to them. So going ahead and moving the boxes back so we can take a look at the build itself. The Boba Fett himself is not at all changed. It's basically just the Boba Fett from the mech set. I just picked a Boba Fett from one of the sets so I can show you some of the features on this. But with that out of the way, let's take a look at the build itself. Now, comparing this to the actual set, you can tell that there are at least a few similarities. You can tell that it does bear a resemblance to this set. But I do assure you, but I can confirm that aside from certain details that make up the cockpit sort of section here, aside from certain details from that, this is a very different build. And to show that even more, here we have a look at the build from the underside, which does prominently use the torso piece from the mech set. That was just a piece that I ended up using for this. So taking a look at it, yes, it does share a lot of details on here, but there are some things in terms of how this looks, but I ended up improving it for my own tastes. For example, these tiny little wings here on the actual sets, because on the actual set it just does look a little bit plain. Doesn't look like it's been detailed enough. So that's a certain thing that I've done here. It's basically the same thing. It uses all the same parts, but I just added a few more details. That's all for that. The red sort of base part is more broken up, and it does look rather different compared to how the set looks. You can tell that certain things are more broken up. You can see more mixel ball joints exposed here for transformation stuff that I'll mention later. So yeah, we have a look at the underside. Here's a look at it from the back, which I did take a little bit of a creative liberty back here, in terms of extra details, in terms of transformation, because we do have a little bit of a sort of exhaust sort of things going on here. So that's neat. Moving on to the sort of, I guess you can call this the stable tail section of the build. It is more gappy and broken up compared to how it looks in the actual set, but there are a couple things that this sort of tail section needs to do, so I kind of forgive for that. I am glad that I'm able to use like certain pieces to like help fill it out, like the tooth pieces to help fill the back out and make it line up more nicely, and the fact that these sort of gun sections here can adjust, they can articulate. Because while to some people, like, the ship kind of looks like that this is the front and that this is the top, but in actuality, this is just how it looks when it's landed, when it's parked, basically. And how the ship typically looks is like that. It certain things like readjust for that. So if we can bring in our other Boba Fett minifigure, the one that is included with the set, we can go ahead and open that up. I did leave the gimmick, the like seating gimmick in from this set, hence some of the details in the front being similar. Because I honestly thought that was pretty neat. I honestly thought that was pretty clever. So you can either sit Boba Fett in like this, or you can readjust him so that he sits in here. And in case you were wondering, no, I tried fitting Boba Fett in with the antenna piece. It just doesn't work. It just does not happen. So, but yeah, you can see them in either position, just like the set. Because I thought that was a pretty neat thing. And while we're at it, we can, of course, readjust the wing pieces and the guns. And here we have a nice look at Boba Fett's ship in the sort of flight mode, cannons and all. And in case you're wondering, yes, the flick-fire missiles do still work. They can still shoot really far, but because of how them being mounted on like these multi-hinge like sort of assemblies, it does make flick firing them a little bit more challenging. It does make them a bit more challenging, but I feel like that's a decent trade-off. Overall, it does look very nice. Does look at least somewhat like how Boba Fett's ship normally does. So that's pretty neat. But we're not quite done yet, because this thing can transform. And now, something that I ended up sort of like taking inspiration from when it comes to transformation is the fact that it almost looks like there's like two like configurations for this ship mode. You know, these with the parked position and the flight position. So I've ended up like taking inspiration from that and implementing it into the transformation so that the robot mode has two different configurations, the vertical one and the horizontal one. And because Boba Fett's already sitting in the more vertical position, well, we can start with that mode. So to start off with that, we can start with this stuff. For the back tail section, we can utilize the joints here. We can utilize the double joints here and readjust those, and use the ball joints to adjust them. However, and for back here, we can move. Yeah, we can readjust the legs. So what we're going to do here is we're going to adjust the legs, rotate this section 180, and flip out the sort of toe thing, the sort of like robot toes. These sort of like robot toes. Do the same for the other side. And basically just adjust the legs so that they'd help stand Boba Fett up nicely. And as far as these go, you can like adjust them however you feel. It honestly like doesn't matter. Like I'd say I'd like to adjust them like this. And with that, here we have Boba Fett in this sort of vertical like sort of like little like mech position, which I do think looks pretty neat. It looks kind of neat. Like, here's how it looks from the back. It does repurpose the sort of tail section as the arms, as like the sort of like gun arms. Yes, the flick fire missiles are still fully like usable. Well, I say fully usable. They're mostly usable. They're still usable, but it does. But like I said earlier, it does. The articulation of the arm, what now are the arms, does make things a little bit more challenging in that aspect. But oh well. Still looks pretty good I still think it looks pretty nice regardless. So we've basically taken a look at that. So in terms of articulation, you have these that rotate, obviously. We have the ball joints here, which can rotate up and down, but also in and out. There's a decent range of articulation in those ball joints. We got this double hinge joint thing right here. That sort of acts as like the elbow and like wrist sort of movement. We got the sort of ball joints in the hips, so you can move the hips all a decent range. And of course the knees, and we have toes, as articulated toes as well. So here we have the sort of robot configuration for that, and let's go ahead and bring in the other Boba Fett for a minifigure comparison when it's outside, with a minifigure outside the mech. So this is the taller of the two like configurations for mech mode. The other is a more horizontal look. So with that, we can just take this. We can start by taking this out and just like putting him in as if we're seating him in the like parked mode. And with that, we can then readjust the arms this way to form these sort of like these like sort of like to give them like this sort of like gun arm like look. And with that, we can rotate the hips and then rotate the legs back so that the toes are facing forward. And you can flip them out if you haven't already. And as far as these things go, like I said before, it really doesn't matter. I'd like to like adjust them like this so that it provides a little bit more of an armored look for the legs. I'd say like adjust the legs so that it's kind of angled like this. Would be like that. And the arms, you can like either splay them out or like straighten them up. It depends on personal preference. But with that, here we have Boba Fett's mech ship thing. transforming like mech ship thing in the other robot mode configuration, in the other like mech mode configuration, the more horizontal look. And here it is next to the other Boba Fett minifigure to give you a decent little size comparison of how this would scale. I do enjoy how this thing turned out for overall. Do you think it's like a little? I do think it's a neat little fun. I do think it's a nice fun little thing. I mean, I honestly didn't like expect it to like come out this nicely, but I do enjoy how it looks. Yeah, very very nice. Do you like that? Now something else I am going to include are the sheer amount of parts that I didn't use for this build, because despite each set not having that much pieces, boy were there some leftovers. So to give you an idea, here are all the leftover parts from the parts I have left over from the builds. And here we do have a lot of larger pieces that were left behind, like the the mech armor thing, the SCPS limbs, those were left behind. This was a large piece from the Microfighter that was left behind. This piece from the Microfighter. These wing pieces from the Microfighter. Like the larger... I believe this was also from the Microfighter. Yeah, probably from the Microfighter. A lot of this other stuff is more small things. I didn't use any of the Key Orange colored pieces because that was not really a color. That was not really a color that this ship is known to have. So so the Key Orange parts were pretty much out. But even then, I still tried to implement different techniques and stuff. For these sections, I was thinking about having a sort of a sort of either bicep or hip swivel, using the Technic piece connecting these two sections together. Ended up not using those. Ended up not using the missile thing from the mech. I didn't use any. With the exception of two of these that I just used to fill out a couple spots, I didn't use any of the brown parts because much like the yellow parts, the Key Orange parts, that was not really a color associated with this build, so those were out. And then the rest is just other things. Noticeably more stuff that's way more stuff that's was not implemented from I do notice that a lot more parts from the mech were not used in the overall build. And I guess that makes sense. I really didn't intend to use all the pieces, because that would be a kind of a colorful mess. And I ended up going with something nice, compact and simple. And that's sort of how it was turned out. I did, however, added a bit of this sand blue to the color scheme, and I do think that balances out nicely. It also fits nicely with this minifigure from the mech set, so that's nice. Yeah, pretty neat. Pretty neat. And with that, that is basically it for. That is basically it for this mech. There's really not a whole lot to talk about here. Now, obviously, I will. I will eventually put out a video on how to build this. But I will say that overall, I do enjoy how it turned out. It's a nice little fun, thing. I do feel like that. I do feel like that the two different robot mech mode configurations turned out better than I initially thought. And I do enjoy how it turned out. And overall, I do. And overall, yeah, I do enjoy how this thing is. I do enjoy how it turned out. Very neat. And yeah, with that, I think that'll be it for this. Combo builds. I will, of course, be posting a video on how to build this for those who want to build it. And of course, yeah, and you can let me. And yeah, why am I tripping on the outro so much? Yikes, that's a fault on my part. Yeah, let's do it again. And with that, that'll be it for this combo build. If you enjoyed the video, consider to like and subscribe, and maybe even comment if you want. And of course, I will be posting again sooner or later. Like that. Why was I stuttering on that so much? Zeesh.